chosen one. You did not step into the role that others had quietly prepared for you. And in that very moment, their seemingly certain plan began to collapse. My beloved child, I am Michael, and I have come to remind you that not every victory needs to be accompanied by cheering, nor does every rescue take place before the eyes of many people. There have been times when you simply paused, refused to react as they expected, declined to say what they wanted to hear, and did not enter the place they had prepared for you. That calmness itself became the doorway to your freedom. They believed they understood every weakness within you. They thought they knew when you would become angry, when you would panic, what would soften your heart, and how quickly you would begin doubting yourself. They placed their confidence in an older version of you, the version who was easily provoked, who felt compelled to explain everything, and who was willing to sacrifice peace merely to receive the approval of others. What they failed to consider was that you had matured throughout your silent seasons. You are no longer the person they could once control through a glance, an accusation, or a carefully constructed story. A plan built upon deception may appear strong until light touches it, but the moment one person refuses to continue cooperating with what is false, the entire structure begins revealing its cracks. People may prepare their words, arrange circumstances, create deliberate coincidences, and construct a story designed to make you appear guilty. Yet they cannot control the choice you make within yourself. They cannot force you to become angry when you preserve your composure. They cannot make you condemn yourself when you know the truth. Nor can they pull you into an endless argument when you decide that peace is more valuable than winning through words. When you no longer respond according to the script, those attempting to maintain control become confused. That confusion often appears through silence, a change in attitude, avoidance of eye contact, or hurried attempts to revise what they once declared with certainty. You do not need to chase them and demand an explanation. Their changing behavior already reveals a great deal. Perhaps you have sensed that the atmosphere around you has changed. Certain people who once spoke too much have become cautious. Promises that once sounded smooth and convincing have suddenly been abandoned. Conversations that repeatedly tried to draw you in have unexpectedly stopped. You may feel the tension, but I do not want you to interpret every silence as evidence of a conspiracy. Remain discerning. Sometimes people withdraw because they realize you are no longer easy to manipulate. At other times, they are simply facing the consequences of their own inconsistency. Your responsibility is not to guess every thought in their mind, but to observe what has genuinely taken place. Look at their actions, repeated patterns, and results. If their words are consistently beautiful, but their behavior continually leaves you confused, you have the right to create distance. If they show kindness only when they need something, you have the right to slow down. If a relationship requires you to betray your own values in order to remain, you have the right to leave without beginning a war. What exposes a dishonest plan is not always one dramatic piece of evidence. Often, it is the small details that cause the story to lose its consistency. A statement made today that does not match what was said yesterday, a change in attitude when someone else appears, kindness shown only when it is profitable, or an explanation so perfect that it no longer feels natural. You have begun recognizing these things because you no longer see people only through what they want you to see. I have taught you to hear the tone hidden beneath their words. to notice what remains within you after each encounter, and to observe whether a person brings clarity or leaves you increasingly disturbed. Yet, discernment does not mean distrusting everyone. It is the ability to love without being naive, to trust while maintaining boundaries, and to remain open without surrendering control over your life to anyone, my child. What disturbs a person who wants to manipulate you most is not your loudly opposing them, but the fact that you are no longer being led by them. When you remain calm, they cannot use your anger to justify their version of the story. When you do not rush to defend yourself, they cannot pull you into an endless cycle of argument. When you preserve necessary evidence, speak briefly, and allow your actions to speak, masks will fall on their own with time. You do not need to stand before a crowd and expose everything you suspect. Some truths are best protected through discretion, patience, and appropriate distance. Allow people to reveal their nature through repeated choices. Do not rush to conclusions without sufficient facts, but do not force yourself to ignore signs that have appeared again and again. Maturity is the ability to hold both compassion and awareness within the same heart. I know that in the past you believed you needed to prove that your intuition was correct. You wanted to gather every detail, confront every statement, and force others to confess. But not everyone possesses enough courage to speak the truth, and their denial does not make your experience meaningless. You may not have a complete file of evidence, but you still have the right to recognize that you no longer feel safe, respected, or treated sincerely. Nevertheless, distinguish between clear awareness and fear that searches for enemies everywhere. Awareness brings calmness and helps you act clearly. Fear causes sleeplessness, speculation, and a defensive view of everyone around you. When confusion rises, return to what can be verified. Ask yourself what was actually said, what truly happened, and which boundary needs to be established now. I do not lead you into confusion. I lead you into clarity. You turn the light toward truth, not by humiliating anyone, but by no longer concealing what you already knew and were once afraid to admit. Perhaps you recognized insincerity, but told yourself that you were too sensitive. You saw contradictions in their stories, but tried to believe they were only misunderstandings. You sensed that you were being used, but continued giving, because you feared being called selfish. Now you are learning to trust what has been confirmed through time. You no longer call control concern, punitive silence peace, or apologies without change repentance. When you change the language within yourself, others lose the ability to define reality on your behalf. That is when the trap becomes powerless, because what held you within it was never only their behavior, but also the doubt that prevented you from trusting what you had experienced. Even so, I do not want your victory to become arrogance. Do not rejoice because another person is confused, and do not spend your days waiting for them to suffer consequences. You were set free, not so that you would continue standing before the broken trap and staring at it forever, but so that you could turn away, move forward, and build a life no longer dependent upon the approval of those who once diminished you. Use this lesson to choose healthier relationships. Say no sooner, and stop overlooking behavior that injures your dignity. If you have made mistakes, correct them humbly. If you have been treated unjustly, seek appropriate support and protect your rights through practical steps. True strength does not deny personal responsibility, but neither does it carry guilt that belongs to someone else. What I want you to retain now is not the thought that your enemies are panicking, but the truth that you have developed the ability to recognize, pause, and choose differently. You passed through a place where you might once have stumbled. You did not give your anger to someone who intended to use it against you. You did not allow fear to make you sign an unwise decision. You did not step onto a stage merely because someone turned on the lights and called your name. Honor that growth. From this day forward, let truth be your foundation, peace your gatekeeper, and self-respect your boundary. I will remain beside you in every step, helping you avoid becoming cold because of what you have endured, while also preventing you from returning to the innocence that once left you vulnerable. The trap lost its power when you stopped playing the role others had written for you. Now step away from the old stage and begin living a story guided by light, courage, and clarity. You caused that trap to fail in the full light because instead of panicking as they expected, you remained still, preserved your composure, and saw through what was being concealed. I know. They waited for a different reaction from you. They wanted you to explain yourself hastily, to hear you question your own judgment, and to watch you lose control so that they could use that vulnerable moment as evidence against you. But you did not give them what they wanted. You did not enter the argument they had prepared. You did not allow their voices to pull you away from clear thinking. Nor did you chase every provocation in an attempt to prove your innocence. You simply watched quietly, and within that stillness, you saw every link in their plan exposing itself. Your composure became the one thing they could not overcome, because a person who is no longer ruled by fear will not easily follow a script written by another. The moment you looked at them calmly, without hatred, but no longer with naivety, every layer of concealment began to crack. You did not need to raise your voice, because the understanding within you said everything. You knew what was taking place, recognized the purpose hidden behind seemingly harmless words, and were no longer willing to play the victim in their performance. Your gaze caused them to lose direction, because it returned all responsibility to them. When you refused to react as they expected, their carefully prepared words suddenly sounded misplaced. Their artificial gestures lost their power, and the stage they had built to shame. You became the very place where their dishonesty was exposed. I want you to understand that victory sometimes comes not because you speak more, but because you refuse to allow another person to pull you into the chaos they have chosen. Therefore, their anger does not arise because you did something wrong, but because their plan no longer works. They invested too much time trying to predict your reactions and too much energy constructing circumstances that would cause you to lose your composure, only for everything to turn back upon them. Now they are the ones sitting in confusion, repeating every detail and wondering why you did not make the mistake they expected. They believed that pressing against an old wound would cause you to react immediately. They assumed that one subtle accusation would be enough to disturb your mind, and that deliberate silence would cause you to run after them for an explanation. But my child has matured. What once destabilized you now causes you to observe more carefully. You have learned that not every apparent emergency deserves an immediate response. And not every accusation is worthy of your energy. I have watched you pass through experiences that sharpened your discernment. In the past, you often doubted what you sensed because you feared being considered overly sensitive. You noticed a subtle change in someone's voice, but told yourself you were imagining it. You recognized an unusual hesitation, but tried to ignore it to preserve peace. You felt that something was inconsistent. But because you wanted to trust others, you repeatedly turned away from the quiet warning within you. Those experiences caused pain, but they also taught you to recognize the difference between genuine peace and a carefully decorated appearance intended to conceal an agenda. Now you do not merely listen to what people say, you observe how they say it, what they avoid when their story changes, and what remains within you after each encounter. This awareness is not suspicion toward everyone. It is the ability to stop betraying yourself merely to keep others comfortable. Remember that not every cage looks frightening. Some cages are decorated with compliments, promises, and gestures that make you believe you are being valued. Not every shining cup contains pure water, and not every open door leads to a place you should enter. Those who seek to control you rarely begin with obvious demands. They usually begin by making you feel special, then gradually causing you to depend upon their approval. But I have taught you to examine the outcome rather than only the appearance. Anything that steadily takes away your voice, causes you to question your worth continually, and keeps you in a state of tension, does not come from the light. What is right may challenge you, but it will never require you to make yourself smaller merely to survive. Stillness protected you, not because silence is always the answer, but because during that moment, you gave yourself enough time to distinguish between rising emotion and the truth that was present. Had you reacted immediately, you might have spoken the words they wanted to hear, made the decisions they wanted you to make, or placed yourself in a position where you had to defend yourself. But when you paused, the entire picture became clearer. You saw contradictions that pressure had previously concealed. You recognized gaps within their story that could not be explained. You understood that a sincere person does not need to create chaos to force you to believe them. This is why I continually remind you to create breathing room before making significant decisions. No one has the right to demand an immediate answer. While your mind is unclear, truth can withstand examination. Only deception fears giving you time to think. Nevertheless, I also want you to remain humble. The ability to recognize signs does not mean that every assumption you make is correct. Pure discernment does not turn you into someone who condemns everyone who behaves strangely. Some people hesitate because they are afraid. Others become silent because they are wounded, and some change their tone because they do not yet know how to express themselves. Therefore, let wisdom walk beside compassion. You may ask questions without making accusations, maintain distance without nurturing hatred, and protect yourself without diminishing another person. I am not teaching you to become cold. I am teaching you to preserve a tender heart within hands that know how to establish boundaries. When the evidence is unclear, continue observing. When the truth has been revealed, act decisively without becoming cruel. Those who are angry because they can no longer control, you may attempt to create a new story. They may call your calmness coldness, describe your boundaries as selfishness, or persuade others that you have changed negatively. Do not panic because of this. Someone accustomed to benefiting from your lack of boundaries will always interpret your growth as betrayal. They will forget every occasion when you yielded, but they will remember very clearly the day you said, "Enough. Let them speak." Your honor is not protected by chasing everyone to explain yourself. but by remaining consistent in the way you live. With time, truth will remain standing, while stories built from anger will contradict themselves and collapse. Now I want you to look beyond the trap you have just escaped. What matters is not only that you avoided a scheme, but that you have become someone who is no longer easily controlled through old methods. You recognized where you were once vulnerable, changed the way you responded, and learned not to place the key to your peace in another person's hands. That is the greatest transformation. They may attempt another method, but you are no longer the version of yourself they once knew. You will not enter arguments simply to be understood. You will not accept an apology without responsibility merely because you fear loneliness. Nor will you return to a place that wounded you simply because it has been covered with several new promises. You will examine actions, consistency, and the fruit a person produces. Therefore, my beloved child, continue walking with the clarity growing within you. Do not view everything you endured only as a wound. Recognize that it trained you to see what many others overlook. Yet do not allow that ability to become a burden that keeps you permanently defensive. I want you to remain awake, while peaceful, cautious, while still capable of love, and strong without becoming harsh. The trap failed because you no longer reacted from fear. They lost their power at the exact moment you chose to remain still and view the situation with clear eyes. From this time onward, remember that feeling. It is the sign of someone who has regained authority over their own life and no longer permits outside noise to silence the pure guidance within. You do not need to prove that you see everything. You only need to continue living in such a way that nothing false can lead you away from the truth. Dignity and peace I am preserving within you. Never allow others to mistake your quiet observation for ignorance, because even when you do not react hastily, you are noticing every small change in their words, attitudes, and treatment of you. I know that many times you chose to remain still instead of immediately questioning them, not because you failed to see what was unusual, but because you wanted to give truth enough time to reveal itself. You listened to accidental words that exposed hidden intentions. Recognize the difference between a sincere smile and forced friendliness, and remembered the moments when their actions no longer aligned with what they had promised. In the eyes of impatient people, such calmness may resemble naivety. Before me, however, it is the ability to govern your emotions and refuse to allow a temporary suspicion to make you act unwisely. You are not standing behind the story. You are seeing the entire picture, so that when the time comes to decide, you will not be led by one isolated moment, but by a clear sequence of events. Some people construct their image by persuading everyone that they are always one step ahead, always in control, and capable of directing every situation according to their desires. They depend upon appearance so heavily that they begin believing that if they speak confidently enough, no one will question them. If they smile gently enough, no one will recognize the motive behind it. And if they repeat a story often enough, it will become true. When they see that you do not argue, they may assume you are easy to guide. When you remain polite, they may believe you have failed to notice the inconsistencies. But, my beloved child, kindness is not blindness, and patience does not mean permitting others to continue crossing your boundaries. You may keep your voice gentle while still seeing the truth. You may remain quiet while protecting your dignity, rights, and peace. I do not need you to speak loudly to prove that you possess discernment. Truly wise people do not rush to announce everything they observe, because they understand that words without evidence may be distorted, while truth confirmed through time remains standing without decoration. You have seen how certain beautiful promises were never fulfilled, how attitudes changed when responsibility was mentioned, and how compliments were sometimes used like soft cords to pull you toward what another person desired. You also recognized that whenever truth approached, they often changed the subject, introduced another story, or made you feel guilty merely for asking a reasonable question. These details are not meant to cause resentment, but to help you understand the pattern taking place. Once you recognize a pattern, the next repetition will no longer surprise you, and you can choose with awareness instead of being led by emotion. What causes dishonest people to lose their advantage is not your humiliating or exposing them before a crowd, but your refusal to respond as they intended. They may wait for you to become angry so they can call you unstable, wait for you to panic so they can dismiss what you say, or wait for you to beg for approval so they can continue controlling your emotions. But when you remain calm, refuse to compete, and do not allow them to pull you into endless conversations, their plan no longer works. You do not give them the satisfaction of seeing you lose your direction, nor do you turn your life into a courtroom where you must continually prove that you are right. Instead, you step back, observe, and allow the natural consequences of dishonest choices to emerge. When a person must continually cover the truth, the additional details they invent to protect their previous story often create new contradictions. Your restraint is not weakness. It is wisdom that knows the right moment and manner in which to speak. Exposing something too early, when you have only a feeling but no confirmation, can cause greater confusion. A dishonest person may immediately change their behavior, deny what they said, erase evidence, or redirect attention toward your reaction. Therefore, I teach you not to act merely to release anger for a few minutes and then carry months of disorder. Give yourself enough time to verify what you have observed. If the issue concerns employment, finances, agreements, or your rights, preserve documents honestly. If it concerns a relationship, observe consistency over time rather than depending upon one beautiful explanation in the moment. Truth does not fear examination. Only deception needs you to forget quickly what happened. Yet I do not want vigilance to turn you into someone who distrusts every glance and gesture. Not every awkward smile is false. Not every incomplete statement conceals a scheme, and not everyone who changes their attitude intends to harm you. Some people are simply afraid, immature, or unable to communicate clearly. Therefore, distinguish between a mistake that can be corrected and a pattern that continues despite your repeated efforts to address it. A sincere person may make mistakes, but they know how to acknowledge them, listen, and change. A controlling person usually avoids responsibility, blames you, and causes you to question your own memory. Do not form a conclusion from one moment, but do not deny what repeatedly unfolds before you, merely because you want to preserve a beautiful image of someone. When the time comes to speak, you do not need bitter words or public disclosure of every detail in order to win. Speak briefly, clearly, and according to what is true. You may say that you have noticed a difference between promises and actions, that a boundary has been crossed, or that you no longer feel safe allowing the same level of access as before. Then let your decision become the answer. Not every conversation needs to continue until the other person admits the truth. Some people will never confirm what happened, if doing so would damage the image they are protecting. Your peace cannot depend upon their confession. Sometimes closure does not come from hearing an apology, but from trusting what you have observed and refusing to place yourself in the same situation again. You must also understand that observation is not meant to help you store another person's mistakes until the day you release them all in anger. If you hold on to every detail simply to nourish resentment, you will remain bound to the very person from whom you want freedom. Use your understanding to make wiser choices, establish clearer boundaries, and protect what matters more. Once you possess enough evidence to know that a relationship is unhealthy, you do not need to remain merely to collect additional proof. When an environment continually erodes your dignity, wisdom may mean leaving calmly, rather than waiting for everyone to acknowledge that you were right. I do not want you to live in order to watch another person's decline. I want you to free your time, attention, and strength to build a better life. Those who underestimated you will eventually understand that your silence was never empty. Within that quietness, you learned, observed, healed, and regained authority over your decisions. You do not need to frighten them. You only need to remain beyond their control. You do not need to make them regret their actions. You only need to refuse to return to the cycle that wounded you. When you stop reacting to the buttons they once pressed, they will realize that their former power no longer exists. This is the purest victory. You do not become like them. Use deception against deception, or sacrifice kindness, merely to prove that you are more intelligent. You keep your eyes clear while preventing bitterness from entering your heart, because true maturity means recognizing what is wrong, without allowing it to corrupt what is good within you. Therefore, my beloved child, continue walking with composure. Observe when observation is necessary, verify before reaching conclusions, and speak when silence begins causing harm to you or to an innocent person. Do not allow anyone to persuade you that you are overly sensitive merely because you recognize an unhealthy pattern, but do not let old wounds cause you to see betrayal everywhere. I am beside you to teach you the balance between tenderness and discernment, forgiveness and boundaries, patience and action. Truth does not need you to scream in order to exist. It will gradually stand through its own consistency. As for you, preserve your dignity, refuse hasty retaliation, and do not turn yourself into a prisoner of psychological conflict. When the truth becomes sufficiently clear, you only need to turn in a different direction with peace, leaving behind masks, contradictions, and every game that no longer has the authority to determine your life.